All right, so today we're going to get into something I think we all think about
Yeah.
pretty much every day, money.
Money, money, money.
Or more specifically, how to make our financial lives a little less, well, chaotic.
Great.
So we're going to take a deep dive today into this whole idea of simplifying your financial picture,
Okay.
like your entire financial picture onto a single page.
Wow.
You heard that right, one page.
That's a pretty bold claim.
That is a bold claim. We've got 3 articles and blog posts all about the book, The One-Page Financial Plan,
Okay.
plus a podcast episode reviewing it.
Interesting.
I don't know about you, but I am intrigued.
Yeah, it's a bold claim. But what I think is so fascinating about this is that all of our sources today really push back against this idea that financial planning has to be the super complicated thing.
Okay, I'm listening.
So instead of getting lost in like massive spreadsheets and like all this obscure financial jargon, the book and the articles about it all advocate for something much simpler.
Simpler, like how?
Clarity and figuring out what matters most to you.
So it's less about the numbers and more about what you actually want your money to do for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of the articles, Reflections on the One-Page Financial Plan, had this great anecdote about the author literally sitting down with his wife with a piece of cardstock just to kind of sketch out their plan.
Wow.
And it suddenly makes this whole concept feel so much more relatable.
Oh, yeah. Definitely less intimidating.
Way less intimidating. And it also underscores a point that every single one of our sources makes, which is that this isn't about mastering complicated formulas or being like a Wall Street whiz or anything.
Right.
It's about understanding what you value financially and then building a plan around that.
That makes sense. Kind of like building a house. You wouldn't just start building without a blueprint.
Exactly.
Speaking of foundations, though,
Yeah.
I noticed that figuring out your why is a pretty big deal in all these sources.
Huge.
Like, why is money even important to you?
Yeah.
How do you answer that question, like, before you even set any financial goals? It's like they're saying, hold on, don't even think about budgets until you've got this nailed down.
It's so crucial. And that podcast episode we have, they had a fantastic example about this couple that wanted to start a family.
Okay.
And that became their why. And it guided every single financial decision that they made, how much to save, the what there. They could cut back on everything.
Wow. So it's really about finding that driving force behind your finances, not just like randomly trying to save, whatever amount of dollars, but like understanding the purpose behind it.
Totally. And think about it this way. Knowing your why isn't even just about money. It's relevant to everything.
Okay.
Finance is how you spend your time. Career choices like that why gives you this guiding principle for making decisions.
Okay. Starting to see how this all ties together. It's making me realize maybe I haven't given enough thought to my own why when it comes to money.
Well, a lot of us don't. And, all these sources talk about how much our mindset affects our financial well-being.
Right.
Like there's all this fear, comparison to others, even that pressure to be perfect.
That can just totally mess with our financial lives.
Oh, tell me about it. The podcast mentioned this perfection paralysis thing, and it was like they were reading my mind.
Oh, yeah.
How many times have I put off like making any financial plans because I was so worried about getting it exactly right?
Right.
It's honestly kind of paralyzing.
It's a trap that so many of us fall into. We get stuck trying to make the perfect decision, and then we end up doing nothing at all.
Yep.
And this approach is much more forgiving. It's about progress, not perfection.
Okay.
So those small steps, even if they're not picture perfect, are still moving you in the right direction.
I like the sound of that. And you know what else I found really interesting?
What's that?
The author of the One-Page Financial Plan, he actually uses these little sketches and doodles to explain his points.
I know, it's brilliant.
It's not something you usually see in a book about money, like at all.
But visuals can make even complex ideas so much easier to grasp.
Oh.
The podcast specifically highlighted this example of a happiness graph.
Showing that the more you spend on things that you truly value, the happier you tend to be.
Interesting.
And you could probably explain it with words, but seeing that image really drives the point home.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're building this financial house. We got the blueprint. We've got our why figured out.
Right.
What comes next?
Well, think about building a real house. You wouldn't just like build it without thinking about the weather, right? Storms, wind, maybe even earthquakes, depending on where you live.
Right.
You have to plan for those risks. And all of our sources today really emphasize that
Okay.
having a plan for dealing with financial risk is like super important too.
Okay, that makes sense. What kinds of risks are we talking about here?
It could be anything really unexpected, job loss,
Oh, yeah.
Medical emergency that comes with like a crazy bill, even a sudden downturn in the stock market if you're invested.
Oh, right.
Life throws those curveballs.
It does.
But having a strategy in place beforehand can really help you weather those financial storms without completely derailing your progress.
So it's like that emergency fund everyone talks about,
Mm-hmm.
but for like your entire financial life,
Right.
not just saving for a rainy day, but like building a system that can withstand whatever craziness comes your way.
Exactly. And that's where knowing yourself and your risk tolerance comes in.
Yeah.
Some people are really comfortable taking big risks.
Yeah.
Others prefer to play it safer.
Hmm.
The key is to find what works for you
Right.
and then build a plan that you can actually stick with for the long haul,
Yeah. Even when things get bumpy.
especially when things get bumpy.
That's where this one-page financial plan comes in, right?
Yeah,
It's not just about doodles and whys.
right.
It's about having this actual plan laid out.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that they really encourage you to think about your goals
Mm-hmm.
across like different time frames, short-term, mid-term, long-term.
Yeah.
It's almost like having a zoom lens for your finances, right?
I like that.
You see the big picture, but you can also zoom in on those specific things you're working toward.
It's such a smart way to stay on track and motivated.
Right.
You know, those short-term wins,
Yeah.
they give you these little boosts of accomplishment along the way.
For sure.
But then those big long-term goals, they kind of help you stay focused on like the ultimate vision you have.
Mm-hmm.
For your financial life, it's about finding that balance between instant gratification and knowing that some things take time to build.
That reminds me so much of how I approach fitness goals.
Oh, yeah.
Like if I only focused on this long-term goal of like running a marathon, I would probably give up pretty quickly.
Yeah,
But if I set smaller goals along the way, like run a 5K, then a 10K,
totally.
it feels way less daunting.
So much less daunting. And you know what else all of our sources emphasize?
What's that?
Having some kind of system to track your progress.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't have to be anything fancy, maybe just like a simple spreadsheet or even just a notebook.
Uh-huh.
But having that way to regularly check in with your finances
Yep.
is so crucial for staying accountable.
That is so important.
Mhm.
I know for me, if I don't have a system to track things, it's really easy to let things slip,
Oh, for sure.
especially with finances
Yeah.
out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
But if I'm like regularly looking at spending my savings, any investments I have,
Hmm.
just keeps me honest.
Right. It's like having a little financial coach on your shoulder all the time,
I love that.
making sure you're staying on track with your goals.
Okay, so speaking of staying on track, one of the most helpful things that I picked up from these sources is the power of automation.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Automation is a lifesaver in so many areas of life, but especially with finances, like
Mhm.
setting up automatic transfers for your savings goals,
Yeah.
for your investments, even your bill payments.
Oh, yeah.
It takes so much mental effort out of the equation.
It's like putting your finances on autopilot in the best way possible.
Totally.
You make the decisions up front,
Right.
and then the system just does the rest.
Yeah. And it frees up your mental energy to focus on other things like your relationships, your career, or just enjoying life without constantly stressing about money.
Exactly. And it also helps with those moments of temptation.
Oh, totally.
If you know, like, your savings are automatically being whisked away each month,
Right.
you're less likely to impulsively spend that money on something you don't really need.
You're less likely to even see it.
Yeah, it's like your future self is thanking you.
Exactly.
I love this. So this one-page financial plan isn't just about scribbling down some numbers.
All right.
It's about setting up these smart systems
Yeah.
that make it easier to make good financial choices
Mm-hmm.
without having to think about it all the time.
Exactly.
Okay, so we talked about mindsets, blueprints, even setting up those systems to kind of automate your finances.
Right.
But I got to admit, I'm still kind of stuck on this whole one-page thing.
Yeah.
Like, what does that actually look like in practice?
Right.
Do I really have to, like, squeeze every single detail of my financial life
Yeah.
onto a single sheet of paper?
That's the question everyone has. And the good news is, you don't need to create a microscopic font to fit everything on there.
Okay, good.
The beauty of the one-page plan is that it's about boiling your finances down to their essential elements.
So it's more about the big picture, not the nitty-gritty details?
Exactly. Think of it as your financial dashboard.
Okay.
You glance at it, you instantly get a sense of where you are and where you're headed. You got your why front and center, your most important financial goals, maybe a quick snapshot of how your assets are allocated,
Right.
and like the key strategies you're using to reach those goals.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. And remember, that blog post reflections on the one-page financial plan,
Yeah.
the author mentioned using just like a simple piece of cardstock.
Yeah, you don't need anything fancy.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be this elaborate color-coded spreadsheet.
No, not at all.
I was picturing something way more complicated.
It's really about finding what works for you. Some people might prefer a digital version,
Right.
maybe using a mind mapping tool or an app.
Right.
Others, like the author, find that the simplicity of pen and paper helps them really connect with the process.
And here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't about creating a document you frame and hang on the wall.
Right.
The one-page financial plan is designed to be a living, breathing thing
Yes.
that evolves as your life does.
I love that you said that it's not something you create once and then forget about.
Yeah.
Like as you hit milestones,
Yeah.
your goals change, your priorities shift, you go back to your one pager and you make adjustments.
So it's a bit like a financial GPS.
Oh, I love that.
You've got your destination programmed in,
Yeah.
but you can also reroute if you hit a detour
Mm.
or decide to take a different path.
Perfect analogy. And, all of the sources we looked at emphasize this idea of regular check-ins.
Yeah.
Maybe once a month, once a quarter, at least annually. Make it a habit to review your plan.
Okay.
It keeps you on track, and it ensures that it's still aligned with your current circumstances.
It's like giving your finances a regular tune-up.
Yep.
Make sure everything is running smoothly. Make any tweaks along the way.
Exactly. And, life is full of surprises,
Oh, yeah.
both the good kind and the not-so-good kind.
Right.
One of the most valuable aspects of this whole one-page plan is that it emphasizes flexibility.
That's so important. A rigid financial plan can't handle a curveball,
Right.
but a more flexible approach can bend without breaking.
Exactly. It's like having a contingency plan built in. Let's say you get a surprise bonus at work.
Okay, yeah.
You can quickly assess your one-pager and decide the best way to allocate those funds. Maybe pay down some debt, boost your investments, or even just treat yourself to something fun.
This is making me realize that for so long I've kind of felt powerless when it comes to money.
Yeah.
Like I'm just reacting to things as they happen instead of feeling in control.
Right.
But this whole approach is really empowering.
That's exactly what it aims to do. It's about shifting from a place of feeling overwhelmed and reactive to a place of confidence and proactive decision-making.
And at the end of the day, isn't that what financial well-being is all about? Aligning your money with your values, your goals, how you want your future to look.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I went from feeling a little intimidated by personal finance to feeling like, hey, I can actually do this.
I love that. And remember, even if you don't follow the exact format outlined in the book, the key principles we've talked about today are universal.
Right.
Understanding your why, setting clear goals, creating systems that work for you, embracing flexibility, these are tools that everyone can benefit from.
And if you're ready to explore further, we've got links to all of today's sources in the show notes.
Definitely check those out.
Definitely check them out to continue your journey.
Absolutely. And remember, this is just the beginning of your financial journey. Take action, even if it's a small step. Stay consistent and never stop learning and exploring how to make your money work for you.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you all today. Until next time, keep those financial blueprints handy. And remember, you've got the power to build the financial future you want.